I was coming back from a conference and had to change planes in Chicago, and so had some time to kill there and was browsing through a bookstore. And I'm not claiming that I've read this book, but just the cover of it and just paging through it a little bit seemed like a very interesting book. It's called The One Thing. I think it's by a man named Gary Keller. A very interesting idea. He says that to be a success in business, that the head of the business or the people in the business need to focus on one thing. That is a big temptation in any kind of work is to be scattered and to focus on too many different things, to try to give your attention to a lot of different areas. But if you just focus on the one thing, whatever that one thing is, he doesn't necessarily define it, but if you focus on that, you'll produce great results. It's focusing on that has the greatest impact. He uses that rule, the 80-20 rule. We're familiar with 20% of the people in any organization, in a church, in a Boy Scouts, in your business, whatever it may be. 20% of the people do 80% of the work. They're the ones that make the biggest difference. And he's applying this as well to our own personal life. If you really want to 20% of the areas that we are dealing with, if you put your energy into that, has the greatest impact. If you focus and direct yourself, you'll find the good results. Well, I think Paul and Barnabas recognized this, maybe intuitively. They did the same thing in their own life and produced great results in their stead. Here they were, Jewish apostles, and they were sent out to preach the good news, and they took on that mission with a great deal of zeal, a great deal of commitment. But their natural target, as they assumed, had to be fellow Jews, especially Jews in the diaspora. They went out there to preach to them and to tell them the good news that the promised Messiah had come and what it all meant to them. And it does say that they met with some success. It says many of the Jews followed Paul and Barnabas. We read that in the Acts of the Apostles today. But for unclear reasons, it seems to be mainly out of jealousy or resentment as much as having anything to do with doctrine, another group of people resented them and opposed them and fought them over it. And eventually Paul and Barnabas said, you know, we're just not going to go down this path anymore. We're washing our hands of it. We're going a different way. We're taking the gospel to the Gentile people. And they said, we're not going to waste our time anymore with people that are not interested in it. We could be depriving those that would have a great desire. And the Gentile people, it says, met this with great joy, and they followed him enthusiastically. It didn't solve all of their problems with their fellow Jews, as they eventually stirred up opposition to them and had them excluded. But they follow the principle that they're going to put their energy where it matters and make a difference where it matters. Surely there's some lessons that we can learn from it, even though it's a little bit difficult to define exactly what those lessons are. We would never want to exclude anybody as an object of evangelization. We never say, well, you can count that group of people out because they're just not going to work. We would never say such a thing. And so everybody remains an object of evangelization. But we can probably acknowledge that some are more promising than others. But again, I'm a little bit anxious to apply that rule. It's been the experience, I know, if you put on or participated in, say, an Acts retreat, or gone to a marriage encounter, or helped out with our youth retreats. Very often the experience is that the person who doesn't want to be there, who was pressured by his wife or pressured by a friend or maybe a parent, a mom or dad said, you have to go on this retreat, I don't care if you like it or not. They're the ones that oftentimes, going with a negative attitude, have the greatest experience. At the end they say, this changed my life. And so we can never say exactly who is and who isn't a good candidate. Right now our Christian faith kind of worldwide experiences a great deal of opposition. It experiences it in a very secularized Western society that is pushing Christian faith out of any practice whatsoever, wants to marginalize it a great deal. And of course we see it very evident in some cultures and lands where members of other faiths don't want Christianity preached or practiced at all. This is especially hard in some Islamic countries that don't permit the practice of the Christian faith, and certainly don't permit it to be preached or any evangelization to take place. That isn't universally true, but it is a serious problem. Maybe God is allowing that to happen, partly for our own purification, partly for our own need to change. But just like that angry person that doesn't want to be there, maybe they're the ones that will be the most receptive. But for you and me, who are here, and it's more likely that where we are, where we live, this is the only place that we can really preach the gospel and share the faith. And that's to our friends, to our family, to our co-workers, to our neighbors. These are the ones that are the most likely objects of evangelization. We even think that way, that we are to share the gospel, which we surely are. They are the most natural objects for us. And there may be Jews and Gentiles among that group as well. Surely, I know many people feel disappointed when they try to share their faith with their family, especially with children that have left the faith, and sometimes they put a lot of energy in trying to win them back. But they may be something like this, figuratively, the Jews in our life, that they just don't want to hear it. They're just not open to it. They stir up opposition. And while we've given it a brave effort, maybe we're passing over the people that are open. Maybe there are the proverbial Gentiles of our family or community, or those that are around us, that would welcome the good news in their midst. Again, a tricky thing to figure out, but we should recognize what is the one thing that we are here to do. What is that one objective? Not a certain group of people, but all groups. Ultimately, only Jesus himself is the evangelizer. Only Jesus brings about conversion, I think, in anybody's life. My sheep hear my voice. I know them, and they follow me. They hear his voice. And whoever hears the voice of Christ, I believe, has to respond positively. If they hear the voice of Christ, they have to turn to him. Of course, they really only hear it if it is said by us, and more importantly, lived by us. The real voice of Christ is love that is shown to another person. But what is that one thing? What is the one thing that we must do? For us, Jesus is the one thing, and sharing that one thing has tremendous impact.